Ryen Russillo is my buddy. We used to work at another place. Now we don't. He's at The Ringer, the Ryen Russillo podcast, brought to you by Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing. Not that podcast, but our show. How you doing, bud?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
You bet. This will be shorter than your podcast, which goes a long time. I went to Ryen Russillo's. He lives by me. I did a podcast for like 90 minutes, and we just sat there. We might as well opened up beers. It was fantastic. So I was saying this, and I'm going to ask Cuban about this. The NBA tends to have a younger audience, more into social media, a little more political, a little more socially conscious. The NFL's got an older fan base. We watch the games. We don't watch highlights. The NFL doesn't give a rip, Ryan. They'll do free agency. They'll do their schedule breakout. They'll do their draft. They don't give a rip what Twitter says. If they did, Kaepernick would be in the league. But I do wonder about the NBA. If they rush back, and there's some corona spreading, right? And there's corona breaks out within the league, they could face a massive social media backlash with their young audience. Now, you have great connections to the NBA. Where are they right now with when do we go back? Do we go back? What are your guys saying, your sources?
So the last time I talked to, the thing that's tough about calling about this stuff is you're calling a lot of guys going, hey, man, I don't know. But the most definitive thing that I got was probably the middle of this month, talking to kind of league sources where it was just, hey, it's March 15th now. We're 60 days at least away from even thinking about getting this thing going again. And then I think on that day or within 24 hours, it had changed to Woj having a report that it was 90 days. So there's all sorts of factors. There's how many games they have to play before they can go to the playoffs, because everybody agrees, teams, players, the execs, that they need some games. Now, I don't know. The Lakers are sitting there in that LeBron cut saying, yeah, hey, why don't you guys battle it out in 2 playoff rounds and then play us in the playoffs? Like, not that the Lakers are going to lose to an 8 seed anyway, but that's not going to happen. The body needs to find a way to get adjusted. But the other part that the NBA has pointed out numerous times is arena availability. That's really one of the biggest issues here. So if you just do this thing that I've always thought, like maybe the NBA just runs through August and owns all those dead weeks sports-wise nationally, but then they have to worry about things like Milwaukee having the Democratic National Convention in the middle of July there. Just the logistics of it is far more complicated than just getting some start dates. So even though everybody has a different way to figure this thing out, you're trying to answer a question that you don't even know really what the question is, because nobody knows what a realistic start date even is.
Some of these owners are very well off. They're not leveraged like a Mark Cuban. James Dolan's not leveraged, but there are a lot of new NBA owners over the last 10 years. I know Robert Sarver for the Suns, was cash poor, I was told at some point a couple years ago. I wonder if there's real desperation from the ownership group to push on Adam Silver. Do you think he's sensing that from some of his owners?
Well, I'm sure some are. Like, whenever we try to think about this, like, I think we're talking about 30 guys that are close to being billionaires. Some are, some aren't. Some are just on paper, which is always a good thing to point out. I'm sure some of these guys want to get this thing going. The weird thing is like the NFL, and it's a great point about the NFL NBA, because normally the NFL used to always have to kind of like run the lead block on all the reactionary stuff, because the NFL would do it, and then the NBA would be like, oh, by the way, this is our concussion protocol, while this league's getting destroyed. The NBA is in the midst of it, so the NFL can sort of draft off of this and try to figure out, okay, like what's working, what isn't working.
Yes.
But, it's a really good point, because, the NBA is trying to do this on the fly, where the NFL can kind of just plan and not worry about September right now, or at least, make a decision. So when I think about owners pushing this, you're right, but I think the players are probably going to be pushing for this too, because it's a partnership. It's basketball-related income. That's what this whole thing, the whole math equation is. How much money do I make? I make my 48+% cut. That's what the players fight for. That's what the players fight for in these CBAs. So, we've heard that they were getting their checks April 1st. We don't know what's going to happen after that. And you're going to have a lot of players going, hey, I know things are bad, but I also don't want to lose 20-something% of my salary this year, because that's just, that's how motivated people are, despite how terrible it is what's going around us. So I think it's going to be collectively everyone trying to get these games going once the numbers start getting real.
Yeah, and, I know nobody wants to play in an empty arena, but let's be honest about this. I was told by a source I trust that an NBA team doctor had told a team in the league currently that had a player that had tested that, guys, you're incredibly low risk. For whatever reason, this virus is much more punitive to older Americans. At one point, Italy's average death was 79 and a half years old, and the average Italian death is 81. So, I do wonder, this whole don't play with fans thing, I'm okay with it, Ryan. I just think you tighten up the shot, you pipe in some noise, your TV partners figure it out. Like, what do you make of that?
Well, there's no question it's weird, right? I heard Barkley on with you saying, just the idea of being in a playoff game and not having the crowd, like, you can't do that. Well, okay. And then, yes, there's a social aspect of, like, making decisions that seem cold and seem motivated by money, but that's kind of what's going on. I mean,
right.
If you're, like, if we're being real here, doing the real discussion that these guys are having behind closed doors, they're going, okay, how can we find a way to not lose all of our playoff television inventory, okay? Because our TV partners want to put something on TV. If we have to watch another 1993 tournament game, like, people are starting to lose it a little bit. People are recapping Leitner's shots.
Right.
So I'm sure the TV partners are like, hey, we're open to you putting this stuff on. And the fact of, like, okay, so if people are still inside, you got to think how a programmer is going to think. And they're going to go, we want to put this stuff on television. So even if it's not ideal, like, anybody that's sitting here going, I have this perfect solution, no one has that perfect solution. So I would imagine that the TV partners, the league, and then even the players are going, this is what you're going to lose monetarily if we do nothing, and this is what we can salvage if we do something. And I imagine those are the things they're already planning out.
I said yesterday, there's never been a great movie with a bad ending. People never hold it against LeBron. His first title in Miami, it was strike shortened. But the last 10 minutes of the movie was D. Wade, Bosh, and LeBron winning his first title, and that's all we talk about. What a glorious year it was. My takeaway, if I'm the NBA, and just, I don't know if it's a question, but if you have a chance for LeBron to hold up a trophy in a Laker uniform, Ryan, nobody 20 years from now, that's the iconic picture. I think that it would be one thing if the Indiana Pacers and, a small Oklahoma City were the number one seeds. And you're thinking to yourself, there's a lot of risk here. I wonder, Ryan, if the end of the movie's good, LeBron Laker jersey, I think there is some risk maybe you have to take on it, right?
Okay, so let me, because I was thinking about this. Let me counter it this way, though.
Okay.
Do you think the NBA, like, if the Pacers were on pace to win 70 games, do you think they'd be like, who cares? We'll just cancel the season?
No, but if you no. But
okay.
You know how decisions are made at big corporations. A lot of times you're in that room for an hour, and they are go either way. And the last guy talking swings the room. LeBron in a Laker uniform holding up a trophy, that is incredible NBA imagery to salvage a year with Kobe's tragic death, the China mess, and the virus, isn't it?
Look, it's a positive. It's certainly a positive, but I think you would agree with me here. It is not, if you mapped out a ranking of the most important factors
right.
whether or not they can bring this season back. I think it is the image, the story, how it's remembered. All those things are accurate. I just couldn't even imagine it's even close to the top 10 reasons why they try to bring this thing back.
All right. Well, I'm a talk show host. I have the right to be wrong. Okay.
You got a lot of time to fill.
You're telling me. I only got about 3 minutes left. Let's go to this. Burrow-Tua debate. Where are you at on that?
I want to start with you because I know you too well. You may not like this, but you're a Tua guy, and I, too, like Tua. If Tua were healthy, I'd prefer Tua over Burrow.
Yes.
You know how much I love LSU. I went to 5 of their games this year, including the playoffs and everything. But when you I'm afraid that what you're doing is that because you're now a Tua guy, you're a big-time Tua guy, that on your path to Tua acceptance and campaigning, you've decided to trash the opponent. And here's a weird concept. I think you can like both guys. I like Burrow a lot. You described him once as Herbert without the arm, and I'm telling you, man, Burrow has whatever that unquantifiable thing that we've definitely used wrong in the past and screwed up with picks. Like when it comes to quarterbacks, I'm not going to guarantee anybody in the first round other than Andrew Luck because 50% of them are absolute busts anyway. But I don't think you need to downgrade Burrow to upgrade Tua. Because if they were both healthy, I'd agree. I'd take Tua. But Burrow, whether it's the completion percentage, which is chucks down the field. I mean, that guy was taking chances the way he commanded things, the way he came and just changed the way that LSU looked at themselves in the mirror with his attitude. There's that thing there that when he's in the huddle, the other 10 guys are going to believe in him. And that's not always automatic with a lot of these other big arm guys.
Yeah, I've sort of evolved on Burrow, and mostly because I'm just talking to a bunch of guys. My GMs are split on him. I think he's Tony Romo. I think he is a winner.
That'd be great.
Yeah, no, here's my question. Could Tony Romo overcome the Bengals ownership? In maybe now the most talented division in football, because say what you want about the Browns, their offensive personnel after they figure out left tackle is ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
I haven't heard you talk about the Browns much. That surprised me.
Okay. We got to do this again. See, I only get 10 minutes with you because, I got, whatever. And
when I saw Cuban and Joe Buck on the list, I was like, okay, my second's shorter, but that's all right.
I'll barely talk to Buck. I'll give him 3 minutes. How's that? But Cuban, I'm giving 20. I'm not going to lie to you.
You should.
All right.
You should. Thanks, man.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.